Now I'd like to introduce Ray Halbritter, who is the Oneida Indian Nation representative and CEO of Oneida Nation Enterprises. A Harvard Law School graduate, he has led the Oneida people to an economic and cultural renaissance. He also leads Change the Mascot, a grassroots campaign to educate the public about the damaging effects on Native Americans caused by the use of the R-word slur. Please welcome him.
Yes, thank you. Saguli, Skanagoga, Ray Halbritter, Neum Gats. My name is Ray Halbritter. I bring you greetings from the people of the Oneida Indian Nation to everyone gathered here. Thank you for having me at this important event. The history and long-term impact of racist mascots is a topic of profound importance, but one that does not get nearly enough attention. The question this panel faces is a critical one. Why were racist mascots selected to represent American sports teams? One simple answer is because America has far too long viewed people of color as subhuman or even non-human, and people of color have not had the political power to fight back and demand a change. This panel has also asked a related question. Who stands to gain from the misrecognition of others? That is a more complicated but equally important question. I would submit to you that the answer is all about who has an interest in controlling our historical memories and what power those memories wield over us as a society. Racism and bigotry are not simply expressions of hate and animosity. They are instruments of raw political power. Those with political power understand that dehumanizing different groups is a way to marginalize them, disenfranchise them, and keep them down. Racist mascots of Native Americans portray our people as cartoonish caricatures, historical relics, or outright savages, a depiction that demoralizes our people and tells the country as a whole that we are to be viewed not as equal members of society, but instead as nothing more than a punchline to a cultural joke. That depiction serves the political status quo. It serves to reinforce a cultural class and economic structure that has for decades relied on marginalizing people of color. You can see this history in the specific history of the Washington football team's name, which has been under serious scrutiny due in part to our Change the Mascot campaign. This name was given to the team by infamous segregationist George Preston Marshall. You may have heard of him in the history books. He was the person who fought against integrating the NFL and who made sure as a team owner that his franchise was one of the last to allow African American players, and only did so under threat of federal action by the Kennedy administration. The current team owners claim that the team's name was designed to honor Native Americans, but this history belies that assertion. This team's name was an epithet that was screamed at Native American people as they were dragged at gunpoint off their lands. The name was not given to the team to honor us. It was given to the team as a way to denigrate us. Knowing this history, why does the current ownership refuse to change it and instead continue to promote, market, and profit off it? It goes back to power and entitlement. They believe America is a place where they get to control and appropriate our people's history and never have to change their ways to address our people's perspective. They believe Native American history is their property rather than our people's heritage. You see a similar situation in the debate over the Civil War monuments. The defenders of Confederate statues claim that they shouldn't be removed because they supposedly represent our country's history. But that's not true, because those monuments honoring the Confederacy are honoring a specific version of history that ignores the institution of slavery. In other words, it ignores the entire history and perspective of African Americans. When it comes to professional sports teams and the use of Native American-themed mascots, the consequences are grave, especially for young people. Social science research confirms that the proliferation of these mascots and the negative portrayals they engender harms Native American kids' self-image and self-worth. It also tells kids who aren't Native Americans that they should see Native Americans as cartoons or caricatures rather than equals. The good news is that more and more people recognize the inherent problems at play, and they are fighting back. Our Change the Mascot campaign has drawn widespread support from civil rights groups, public health organizations, religious leaders, athletic icons, and members of Congress of both parties. State legislation has also been passed pressing teams to stop using these names. And just recently, we saw the Cleveland baseball team respond with a decision to stop using what many believe was a highly offensive team logo. The recent burst of activism around changing mascots was actually touched off for us by kids in central New York, specifically Cooperstown, the home of the Baseball Hall of Fame. High school students there in 2013 decided to force their school to change their team's name from the same word the Washington professional football team uses. Their message was particularly powerful because they displayed a much more thoughtful and respectful attitude than many wealthy professional team owners. Of course, the pushback to these efforts has been fierce, even as more and more activists, lawmakers, and nonprofit groups join the Change the Mascot campaign. The Washington football team has tried to challenge the notion that the racial epithet they use is offensive at all. They have tried to cherry-pick polling data to claim that the team's name is perfectly acceptable. They somehow believe you can poll morality, civility, and basic human decency. Their refusal to even acknowledge that a racist epithet is a racial epithet is another assertion of entitled power. They believe they get to decide what is and what is not offensive to people of color. This pushback shows why we must continue our work to raise awareness and make our society aware that these mascots and logos are completely and totally unacceptable. A forum like this is exactly the kind of space for public education that exemplifies what is needed. When a multi-billion-dollar organization like the NFL is each Sunday promoting a racist mascot that harms our children, we all have an obligation to speak out and demand a change. We have an obligation to convene meetings like this to explore exactly how these mascots and this bigoted iconography psychologically harms our young people. Frederick Douglass famously said that power concedes nothing without a demand. And that principle holds true in this campaign to get sports teams to finally do the right thing. Stand on the right side of history, stop using bigoted mascots, and I am confident with your help, power will concede, and this change will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.